I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you to forgive me. It meant nothing.
I always thought the sound of a man crying was the most heartbreaking sound in the world, a raw, guttural noise that signaled a loss too deep for words. But that was before I stood outside the master bathroom door on a Tuesday afternoon, my hand hovering over the handle, realizing the man weeping inside was my husband, and the reason for his tears was the end of our life as I knew it. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. I am Mr. Zaha. Thanks for tuning in today. A kind words from a man who has seen it all. Marriage are not mostly bed of roses. Sometime you need more of. More of what? Can't say. Continue watching, and you will surely know what to do in situations like this. Kindly hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started. The Tuesday started like any other in the Sterling household, which is to say, it started with the quiet, calibrated hum of extreme wealth. Elena sat at the breakfast island, nursing a cup of Earl Grey tea. The kitchen was a cavernous space of white marble and brushed steel, illuminated by the morning sun streaming in from the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Seattle skyline. Marcus came in at 7 a.m. sharp. He was the face of Sterling & Co., a logistics empire that moved half the world's goods. He was 42, handsome in a way that Forbes magazine liked to describe as rugged yet refined, and he was the love of Elena's life. They had been married for 12 years. They were the couple everyone cited when they argued that love could survive money. "Coffee is fresh," Elena said, smiling as he entered. She reached out a hand to touch his arm as he walked by. Marcus flinched. It was subtle, a micro-movement, a tightening of the bicep, a quick shift of his weight away from her touch, but Elena felt it. It was like touching a static-charged fence. He grabbed a travel mug, keeping his back to her. "Thanks, Elle," he mumbled. "I'm running late. The Tokyo markets are volatile. I have to be in the office before the bell." Elena lowered her hand, a small frown creasing her forehead. "You didn't sleep well again, did you? I felt you tossing and turning all night. Marcus, maybe you should see a doctor. This insomnia." "I'm fine," Marcus snapped. The harshness of his tone cracked the serene morning air. He froze, realizing his mistake, and turned around. His eyes were red-rimmed, surrounded by dark circles that no amount of expensive moisturizer could hide. He looked like a man who was being hunted. "I'm sorry," he softened his voice, forcing a tired smile. "I'm just stressed. The merger. You know how it is." He walked over and kissed her on the forehead. It was a cold kiss. Perfunctory. A check mark on a list of husbandly duties. "I'll see you tonight." Elena asked. "Maybe late," he said, already checking his phone. "Don't wait up." He walked out the door. The heavy oak slammed shut, leaving Elena alone in the silence of their $10 million home. She looked at her reflection in the dark window of the oven. She saw a woman who was perfectly put together, silk blouse, manicured nails, calm expression, but inside, a thread was pulling loose. Marcus had been different for months. Distant. Jumpier. He took phone calls in the garden at midnight. He changed his passcode. Elena had told herself it was work. It was always work. He was a billionaire. The weight of the world was on his shoulders. To accuse him of anything else felt ungrateful, almost petty. "He loves me," she reminded herself. "He built this life for us." Elena shook off the unease. She had a busy day. She was chairing the committee for the arts gala. She had a luncheon at the country club at noon, followed by a site visit at the museum. She grabbed her purse and headed out. The day, however, did not go according to plan. At 11:30 a.m., while Elena was driving toward the luncheon, her phone buzzed. It was the museum director. A pipe had burst in the main gallery. The site visit was canceled. The luncheon was postponed because the venue had lost power. Suddenly, Elena had a Tuesday afternoon with absolutely nothing to do. She considered going shopping. She considered going to the spa. But mostly, she just wanted to go home and nap. The tension from the morning had left her with a headache behind her eyes. She turned her car around and headed back to the estate. When she pulled into the long, winding driveway, she noticed something odd. Marcus's car, his vintage Aston Martin, was parked in front of the garage. He wasn't at the office. Elena's heart gave a strange little skip. Maybe he came home sick, she thought. Maybe he finally crashed from the exhaustion. She parked her car and entered the house quietly. She didn't call out. She didn't want to wake him if he was sleeping. The house was silent. The staff had the afternoon off. She walked up the grand staircase, her footsteps muffled by the thick runner. As she reached the landing, she heard a sound coming from the master suite. It was the sound of running water. The shower was on. Elena smiled. He was home. He was taking a break. Maybe she could join him. Maybe they could wash away the distance that had grown between them in the steam. She walked into the bedroom. His suit jacket was thrown carelessly on the floor, something Marcus, who was obsessively neat, never did. His tie was draped over the lamp. One shoe was in the middle of the room. It looked like a scene of panic or desperation. Elena walked toward the bathroom door. It was slightly ajar. That was when she heard it. It wasn't just the water. Beneath the hiss of the shower head, there was another sound. A low, jagged heaving. Someone was crying. Elena froze. Her hand hovered over the brass handle. She had seen Marcus cry exactly twice in 12 years, when his father died, and when they found out they couldn't conceive children. He was a stoic man. He didn't cry, but he was crying now. It sounded painful, like the air was being ripped out of his lungs. Then, the sobbing stopped, replaced by a voice. He wasn't alone. He was on the phone. I can't. Marcus's voice was choked, wet with tears. I can't do it, Sarah. I can't breathe. Sarah. The name hit Elena like a physical blow to the sternum. Sarah was his new executive assistant. Young, brilliant, fresh out of Stanford. Elena had met her at the Christmas party. She had complimented Sarah's dress. Elena stood paralyzed, her entire world narrowing down to the crack in the door. No, listen to me, Marcus said, his voice rising in desperation. It's killing me. Every time she looks at me, every time she touches me, I feel like I'm burning alive. There was a pause as he listened to the person on the other end. I know I promised you, Marcus sobbed. I know, but she doesn't deserve this. She's good. She's innocent. Another pause. Then, the words that would haunt Elena for the rest of her life. I love you, Marcus whispered. God help me. I think I love you. But I can't lie to her anymore. I have to tell her. Today, I'm going to lose everything, but I have to tell her. Elena didn't breathe. She didn't blink. The reality of the last 12 years shattered. It didn't break cleanly. It exploded. The late nights. The password changes. The flinching when she touched him. It wasn't stress. It wasn't the merger. It was Sarah. He was in love. With someone else. And he was in their bathroom, crying not because he had lost his wife, but because the guilt of deceiving her was finally outweighing the pleasure of the affair. A cold, white rage washed over Elena. It started in her toes and moved up, displacing the shock, displacing the heartbreak. It was a clarifying fire. She didn't retreat. She didn't run away to cry in her car. She was Elena Sterling. She was the woman who had helped him build his empire. She was the woman who had stood by him when the SEC investigated him, when the market crashed, when the world turned its back. She reached out and pushed the door open. The hinges didn't creak. The door swung inward silently. Marcus was sitting on the edge of the oversized bathtub, fully clothed. The shower was running full blast, creating a wall of steam. He was hunched over, his head in his hands, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked small. He looked pathetic. He sensed the movement. He looked up. His face was a wreck. Swollen eyes, splotchy skin, tears streaming down his cheeks. He looked at Elena standing in the doorway, perfectly composed in her cream suit, her purse clutching in her hand. His eyes went wide. The phone slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the tile floor. "Elle," he whispered. The word was a ghost. Elena didn't yell. She didn't throw things. She simply reached over and turned off the light switch on the wall, plunging the room into the gray natural light of the afternoon. She walked over to the shower. She reached in, her sleeve getting wet, and turned off the water. The silence that rushed back into the room was deafening. It was heavier than the noise. She turned to look at him. "Pick up the phone, Marcus," she said. Her voice was terrifyingly calm. Marcus shook his head, trembling. "Elena, wait. Please. Let me explain." "Pick up the phone," she repeated. "Is she still on the line?" "Sarah." Marcus flinched at the name. He looked at the phone on the floor. The screen was still lit up. The call was active. "Yes," he whispered. "Tell her," Elena said. "Tell her what?" Marcus choked out, standing up, reaching for her hands. She stepped back, keeping exactly 3 feet of distance between them. "Tell her you can't lie to me anymore," Elena said. "You were just practicing the line, weren't you? It was a very moving performance. So tell her. Tell her you don't have to lie anymore. Elena, please. Marcus dropped to his knees. The billionaire, the titan of industry, was on his knees on the wet bath mat. I made a mistake. It's over. I was ending it. That's why I was crying. I was ending it because I choose you. You didn't choose me, Elena said, looking down at him with a look that was devoid of pity. You chose guilt. There is a difference. She looked at the phone again. Hang up the phone, Marcus. And then pack a bag. Pack a bag. He looked up, terrified. Where am I going? I don't know, Elena said. And I don't care. But you aren't sleeping here. This is my house. These are my memories. And you have polluted them. Oh, we can fix this. I'll do anything. I'll give you anything. You have nothing I want, she said. She turned around and walked out of the bathroom. She walked through the master bedroom, past the bed they had shared for a decade, and out into the hallway. She heard him scrambling behind her, sobbing her name. Elena. Elena, stop. She didn't stop. She walked down the grand staircase, her heels clicking a rhythm of finality. She walked to the front door and opened it. The afternoon sun was still shining. The birds were still singing. The world hadn't ended. Just her life. She waited. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs, looking wild and broken. I love you, he screamed, his voice echoing through the massive foyer. Elena looked up at him. You're crying, Marcus, she said softly. But you're crying for yourself. When you learn to cry for what you did to me, then maybe we can talk. She walked out and closed the heavy oak door behind her. Elena just walked out on the love of her life after catching him in the ultimate betrayal. Do you think she was too calm, or was that the perfect power move? And does Marcus deserve a second chance if he was trying to end it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The Four Seasons Seattle was a sanctuary of beige tranquility, a place where people paid a premium for the privilege of being unbothered. Elena sat on the edge of the bed in the presidential suite, staring at a bowl of complimentary fruit that looked too perfect to be real. It had been 4 hours since she walked out of her front door. She hadn't cried yet. That was the strange part. She felt a phantom pressure behind her eyes, a physical weight in her chest, but the tears wouldn't come. It was as if her body had gone into shock, diverting all energy to the simple task of keeping her heart beating. Her phone, sitting on the nightstand, buzzed incessantly. Marcus, 14 missed calls. Marcus, 8 text messages. She didn't read them. She couldn't look at his name without seeing him hunched over the bathtub, weeping for another woman. Sarah. Elena closed her eyes. The image of the girl came rushing back. The Christmas party 3 months ago. Sarah had been wearing a red dress. She was bright, eager, laughing at Marcus's jokes with a little too much enthusiasm. Elena had thought it was admiration for a boss. She had even told Marcus later, she's sharp. You should mentor her. She had invited the viper into the nest and complimented its fangs. A knock at the door shattered her reverie. Room service, a muffled voice said. Elena frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It wasn't room service. It was Marcus. He was still wearing the same suit from the morning, but the tie was gone, and the top buttons of his shirt were ripped open. He looked wild, frantic. He was holding a room key card. He owned a minority stake in the hotel chain. Of course, he had overridden the privacy blocks. Elena debated leaving the chain on. She debated calling security. But the silence in her head was becoming deafening. She needed to hear the words. She needed to inspect the wreckage. She opened the door. Marcus stumbled in as if he had been leaning against the wood. He smelled of scotch and desperation. Elena, he breathed, reaching for her. She stepped back, moving deeper into the room, putting a heavy velvet armchair between them. How did you find me? She asked. Her voice was unrecognizable, flat, metallic. I tracked the car, Marcus said, rubbing his face. The GPSL, please. You have to come home. We can't do this here. The staff, people will talk. Let them talk, Elena said. You didn't seem to mind who was listening when you were sobbing in the shower. Marcus winced. He collapsed onto the sofa, burying his head in his hands. I messed up, Elena. I messed up so bad. It's not what you think. It's not. Elena let out a short, dry laugh. You weren't telling another woman you loved her? You weren't crying because the guilt of your double life was finally too much? Please, Marcus, enlighten me. What was it? Marcus looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. It started 6 months ago, he whispered. The Tokyo trip. We were working 20-hour days. The deal was falling apart. I was I was lonely, Elle. You were busy with the foundation. We hadn't connected in weeks. Sarah was there. She listened. She made me feel seen. Seen? Elena repeated, the word tasting like ash. I have looked at you every day for 12 years, Marcus. I have memorized the lines of your face. I have anticipated your needs before you even knew them. And you felt seen by a 24-year-old assistant because she laughed at your jokes and stroked your ego. It wasn't just ego, Marcus shouted, then lowered his voice, looking at the door. It was escape. She didn't know about the SEC investigation. She didn't know about the pressure. With her, I wasn't the billionaire. I was just Marcus. And who am I? Elena asked quietly. The warden. No. You're my life, Elena. You're the foundation. That's why I couldn't tell you. I was terrified of losing you. I tried to end it. 12 times. Today was the end. I swore it. Why today? Elena asked. She needed to know the catalyst. Marcus hesitated. He looked away, staring at the panoramic view of the Puget Sound. She gave me an ultimatum, he said softly. Elena felt a sharp, stabbing pain in her gut. Go on. She wanted more. She was tired of the secrets. She said if I didn't tell you by tonight, she would go to the press. She has texts, Elena. Emails. She threatened to blow up the merger. Elena stared at him. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. The weeping in the bathroom wasn't just guilt. It was fear. He wasn't crying because he hurt his wife. He was crying because his house of cards was burning down and he was trapped inside. So you didn't choose me, Elena said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. You were cornered. You were blackmailed. No, I love you. The thought of her hurting you, that's what broke me. That's why I was crying. Because I realized I had given someone the power to destroy the woman I love. You gave her that power the moment you touched her, Elena said. She walked over to the window. Down below, the city was moving. People were going to dinner, holding hands, living lives that weren't exploding. Is she pregnant? Elena asked. She had to ask. No, Marcus said quickly. No. God, no. Does she expect you to leave me? She thinks I'm unhappy. She thinks we're just a corporate arrangement. I may have implied that to keep her quiet. Elena closed her eyes. A corporate arrangement. That was what he called their marriage. 12 years of building him up, of nursing him through pneumonia, of holding his hand at his father's funeral. A corporate arrangement. Get out, Elena said. Elle, please. Get out. She spun around, grabbing a heavy crystal vase from the table and hurling it. It missed him, smashing into the wall behind his head. Shards of glass rained down onto the carpet, glittering like diamonds. Marcus flinched, shrinking back into the sofa. He had never seen her violent. He had never seen her lose control. I am not a corporate arrangement. Elena screamed, the tears finally coming now, hot and angry. I am your wife. I am the only reason you are still standing. And you sold me out for a girl who threatened you. She pointed a shaking finger at the door. Leave. Go back to your big, empty house. Go back to your money. But do not stay here. Marcus stood up slowly. He looked at the shattered glass. He looked at his wife, who was shaking with the force of her grief. I'm going to fix this, he whispered. I don't know how, but I'm going to fix this. You can't fix glass, Marcus, Elena said, turning her back on him. You can only sweep it up. Marcus left. Elena stood in the center of the room, listening to the silence return. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. She walked into the bathroom and washed her face. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen. Her skin looked gray. She needed to think. She needed a plan. But the world, as it turned out, wasn't going to give her time to think. Her phone buzzed again. Not a text from Marcus this time. A notification from Google Alerts. Elena Sterling. She frowned. She rarely checked the alerts. They were usually about charity events or gala photos. She opened the notification. It was a link to a gossip blog, the Seattle Insider. Headline, Trouble in Paradise? Billionaire Marcus Sterling spotted looking disheveled at Four Seasons while wife checks in alone. There was a photo. It was grainy, taken from a cell phone across the lobby. It showed Elena standing at the reception desk earlier, looking pale. Without her ring, she hadn't worn it. She had left it on the bathroom sink at home. And below it, an update posted 5 minutes ago. Update. Sources inside Sterling & Co. report the CEO canceled all afternoon meetings citing a family emergency. Meanwhile, a certain blonde executive assistant was seen leaving the office in tears carrying a box of personal items. Are the dots connecting? The story was leaking. Sarah wasn't waiting for Marcus to tell the truth. She was burning the ground as she retreated. Elena felt a wave of nausea. The humiliation was beginning. It wasn't just a private tragedy anymore. It was going to be a public spectacle. The charity committees, the society friends, the board members, they were all going to know. She sat down on the bed. She felt small. She felt exposed. But beneath the shame, the ember of rage Marcus had ignited began to glow brighter. He had humiliated her. He had exposed her to this. She picked up her phone. She didn't call Marcus. She didn't call a lawyer. She called the one person who could stop the bleeding, or at least control the flow. Samantha, Elena said when her publicist answered. Elena? I just saw the blog. Tell me it's garbage. Tell me I'm suing them for libel. It's not garbage, Elena said, her voice stealing. But we're not suing. We're controlling the narrative. Okay, Samantha went into crisis mode instantly. What's the play? Deny, deny, deny. Health issues. No, Elena said. Silence. I'm issuing a statement that I am taking a sabbatical from my charitable duties to focus on personal matters. That's it. No mention of Marcus. No mention of divorce. That leaves a lot of room for speculation, Elena. Good, Elena said. Let them speculate. Let them look at him. I want him to feel the heat. I want him to sweat. And where will you be? I'm going to the lake house, Elena said. It was a small property 3 hours away, isolated, no cell service unless you stood on the roof. I'm turning my phone off. If Marcus calls you, tell him I'm unavailable. She hung up. She packed her small overnight bag. She took the elevator down to the garage, bypassing the lobby. As she drove out of the city, the rain began to fall, a classic Seattle drizzle that blurred the lights of the skyline. She looked in the rearview mirror at the city she had helped Marcus conquer. She was leaving it behind. She wasn't running away, she told herself. She was taking the high ground. But as she merged onto the dark highway, the image of Marcus in the bathtub replayed in her mind. The raw, naked pain in his voice. I can't lie to her anymore. He had finally told the truth. And the truth had destroyed them. Elena gripped the steering wheel. She was alone now. No husband. No power couple status. Just a woman in a car, driving into the dark, with nothing but the shards of her life rattling in the passenger seat. Elena is taking control of the narrative and leaving Marcus to face the music alone. Do you think she should have stayed and fought, or is silence the ultimate weapon? And what is Sarah going to do next now that the secret is out? Let me know your theories in the comments. The lake house was not a mansion. It was a cedar-shingled A-frame nestled deep in the Cascade foothills, surrounded by towering Douglas firs that blocked out the sky. There was no cell service unless you stood on a specific stump in the backyard, and the only heat came from a wood-burning stove that required constant attention. For the first week, Elena did nothing but chop wood. She chopped until her hands blistered. She chopped until her shoulders screamed. She chopped until the physical pain drowned out the mental noise. She didn't turn on the television. She kept her phone off, buried in a drawer in the kitchen. She was detoxing, not from drugs, but from Marcus. For 12 years, her identity had been woven into his. She was the moon to his sun, reflecting his light, softening his edges. Without him, she felt unmoored, like a satellite knocked out of orbit. But slowly, in the silence of the woods, a different voice began to emerge. It was quieter, rustier. It was her own. She woke up when the sun rose, not when Marcus's alarm went off. She drank coffee from a chipped mug, sitting on the damp porch, watching the mist roll off the lake. She didn't wear makeup. She wore an old cable knit sweater and jeans. She found a sketchbook in the attic, one she hadn't touched since art school. She sat by the water and drew the trees. Her lines were shaky at first, but then they grew bolder. She was remembering who she was before she was Mrs. Sterling. While Elena was finding peace in the void, Marcus was drowning in the echo chamber. The Sterling estate in Seattle was designed for entertaining. It was a house meant to be filled with music, laughter, and clinking glasses. Empty, it felt like a mausoleum. Marcus wandered the halls at night. He couldn't sleep in the master bedroom. The scent of Elena's perfume on the pillows was too painful. He slept in the guest room, or sometimes on the leather sofa in his study. The scandal had broken, just as Elena predicted. The blogs were vicious. The Seattle Insider ran a series, The Fall of the King. They analyzed his body language in old photos. They speculated about the timeline of the affair. Sarah had quit. She sent a lawyer to negotiate a severance package with a non-disclosure agreement. Marcus signed the check without looking at the amount. He didn't care about the money. He just wanted the evidence of his failure to go away. But the silence in the house was worse than the noise of the press. He missed the sound of Elena's car in the driveway. He missed the way she hummed when she cooked. He missed the way she anchored him. He tried to work, but he was useless. He sat in board meetings, staring at spreadsheets that blurred into nonsense. He snapped at his VP. He missed a crucial call with a supplier in Hamburg. He was a man who fixed things. That was his genius. Logistics. Problem solving. Getting things from point A to point B. He decided he had to fix this. He couldn't call her. She wouldn't answer. He couldn't go to the lake. She had told him to stay away. So he did what he always did. He threw money at the problem. He sat in his study, looking at the blueprints of the lake house. He remembered Elena complaining last winter that the roof leaked and the dock was rotting. I'll fix it, he thought. I'll show her I care by making her safe. He picked up the phone. He didn't call a therapist. He called a contractor. 2 days later, the piece of the lake was shattered. Elena was sitting on the dock, sketching a heron, when she heard the rumble of heavy engines. She looked up to see a convoy of white trucks coming down the narrow dirt road. Sterling Construction. Her stomach dropped. The truck stopped. A man in a hard hat jumped out, holding a clipboard. "Mrs. Sterling," he called out, waving. "We're here for the retrofit." Elena stood up, clutching her sketchbook. She walked up the path to meet him. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "The work order," the foreman said, cheerful and oblivious. "Mr. Sterling sent us. Priority 1. We're tearing out that old deck, installing a heated composite one. New roof, solar array, and a satellite internet dish so you can get back online. We've got a crew of 12. We'll be done in 3 days." Elena stared at the trucks. They were filled with lumber, steel, and technology. He was doing it again. He was bulldozing her reality. He was trying to turn her sanctuary into another wing of the Sterling Empire. He thought a heated deck would fix a broken heart. "No," Elena said. The foreman blinked. "Ma'am." "No," she repeated louder. "Turn the trucks around." "But," Mr. Sterling paid in full. "It's a rush job. He said you needed to be comfortable." "I am comfortable," Elena said. "Leave. Now, or I'm calling the sheriff for trespassing." The foreman looked at her face. He saw the steel in her eyes. He signaled the drivers. "All right, boys. Pack it up." As the trucks reversed, beeping loudly, Elena marched into the house. She went to the kitchen drawer and dug out her phone. She turned it on. It buzzed for 5 minutes straight with missed notifications. She dialed Marcus. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." His voice was breathless, hopeful. "Did the crew get there? I know the deck was dangerous. I just wanted to make sure you were safe. The satellite dish is top of the line. You won't have to be cut off anymore." "Stop," Elena said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was exhausted. "I sent them away, Marcus." "What? Why?" "Hell, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to take care of you." "You're not taking care of me," Elena said, gripping the phone. "You're trying to manage me. You're trying to renovate your guilt. I'm trying to show you I love you." Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. "I don't know what else to do. I'm sitting in this empty house, and I'm going crazy. I just want to fix something." "You can't fix this with a checkbook, Marcus." Elena cried. "That's your problem. You think everything is a logistics issue. You think if you just move the right resources to the right location, the problem is solved. But we aren't a supply chain. We are a marriage." Silence on the line. "I miss you," Marcus whispered. It was the same tone he had used in the bathroom. "Broken. I miss you too," Elena admitted, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "I miss the man I thought you were. But that man wouldn't have sent a construction crew to invade the only place I have left. That man would have understood why I need silence." "Tell me what to do," Marcus begged. "Just tell me. I'll do anything. I'll quit the company. I'll sell the house. Just tell me how to get you back." Elena looked out the window at the lake, still and gray. "You can't get me back, Marcus. I'm not a prize to be won. You have to find yourself. Because right now, you're just a wallet in a suit. And I don't love the wallet." She took a deep breath. "Don't send anyone else. Don't send flowers. Don't send diamonds. If you want to fix something, go fix the leak in your own soul. Find out why you needed her. Find out why you lied. And do it alone." "Alone?" Marcus sounded terrified. "Yes, alone. Just like I am. Elena. Goodbye, Marcus. She hung up. She turned the phone off. She went back out to the dock. The heron was gone. The trucks were gone. The silence returned, but now it felt different. It felt earned. In Seattle, Marcus stared at his phone. Fix the leak in your own soul. He looked around his study. It was filled with awards. CEO of the Year. Top 30 under 30. Philanthropist of the Decade. They were just glass and metal. They meant nothing. He walked to the window and looked out at his estate. The perfectly manicured lawn. The infinity pool. It was all perfect. And it was all a lie. He had spent his life building defenses against vulnerability. Money was armor. Success was a shield. And when the armor got too heavy, he had sought escape with Sarah, a cheap, easy release that didn't require him to be real. He realized then that Elena was right. He didn't know who he was without the noise. He sat down in his leather chair. He opened his laptop. He didn't open his email. He didn't check the stock market. He opened Google. He typed, "Therapist specializing in narcissism and infidelity Seattle." He hit enter. It was a small step. A microscopic step. But for the first time in his life, Marcus Sterling wasn't trying to buy a solution. He was admitting he was the problem. He picked up the phone and dialed the first number on the list. "Dr. Eris?" Marcus said when the receptionist answered. "My name is Marcus. I broke my life, and I don't know how to put it back together." Marcus finally hit rock bottom and is reaching out for real help instead of using his credit card. Do you think a billionaire can really change, or is it too little too late? Tell me if you're rooting for his redemption in the comments. 6 months had passed since the glass shattered in the hotel room. The seasons had turned. The leaves at the lake house had burned red and gold, then fallen, leaving the trees bare skeletons against the gray sky. Elena had survived the silence. In fact, she had learned to crave it. But the world outside the woods was loud, and it was demanding her return. The invitation arrived by courier. A thick, cream-colored envelope with gold calligraphy. The Sterling Foundation Annual Winter Gala. It was the crown jewel of the charity season. Elena had founded it 10 years ago. It was her baby. For the last 6 months, the board had run it without her. But now, the pressure was mounting. Donors were asking questions. The rumors were festering. Is she hiding? Did she have a breakdown? Is it true she drove him to the affair? The narrative had shifted. In the absence of truth, society had filled the void with misogyny. The blogs were now painting Marcus as the tortured genius seeking solace, and Elena as the ice queen who had frozen him out. Elena sat at her kitchen table, staring at the invitation. She could stay here. She could burn the invite in the wood stove and watch the sparks fly up the chimney. But that would be letting the lie win. She stood up. She walked to the mirror in the hallway. Her face was different now. The softness of the trophy wife was gone. There were fine lines around her eyes from squinting at the sun on the lake. Her skin was wind-chapped. She looked real. "No," she whispered to her reflection. "I built that foundation. I'm not going to let them erase me." The night of the gala, the grand ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, was a sea of black tuxedos and glittering sequins. Elena arrived alone. She didn't take a limousine. She took a town car. She didn't wear a gown that screamed for attention. She wore a vintage velvet dress in deep midnight blue, high-necked and long-sleeved. It was armor. As she stepped onto the red carpet, the air exploded. Flash, flash, flash. "Elena, Elena, over here. Mrs. Sterling, is it true you and Marcus are living apart? Elena, do you have a comment on Sarah's interview?" She kept her chin high, her eyes fixed on the middle distance. She walked the gauntlet of light without flinching, though her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Inside, the room went quiet as she entered. A hush rippled outward from the door, silencing conversations. Eyes darted. Champagne glasses paused halfway to mouths. Elena took a breath and walked into the fray. She greeted the donors she knew. She smiled. She played the part. But she felt the judgment. It was a physical weight, pressing down on her shoulders. Then, she saw him. Marcus was standing near the stage. He looked different, thinner. His tuxedo hung slightly loose on his frame. His hair, usually gelled to perfection, was softer, graying at the temples. He wasn't holding court. He wasn't laughing loudly with the board members. He was standing quietly, holding a glass of sparkling water. He looked up. Their eyes locked across the room. For a moment, the noise faded. He didn't rush over. He didn't wave. He simply nodded, a slow, respectful acknowledgement of her presence. Then he turned his back and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the wings. He was keeping his promise. He was leaving her alone. Elena felt a strange pang in her chest. Relief? Or something else? Mrs. Sterling. A voice purred at her elbow. Elena turned. Standing there was a reporter from the Seattle Insider, the blog that had broken the story. And next to him, holding a glass of champagne, was a woman in a red dress. Sarah. She hadn't disappeared. She had rebranded. She was now a lifestyle consultant and a media darling, selling her story of being the muse who inspired a billionaire. "Hello, Elena," Sarah said. Her voice was sweet, cloying. She looked victorious. "I didn't think you'd show your face." "Brave." Elena stiffened. "This is my event, Sarah. You're the one who is trespassing." "Oh, I'm not trespassing," Sarah smiled, flashing a press badge. "I'm covering the event. We're doing a piece on the cost of ambition. It's about how successful men are often starved of affection at home." The reporter thrust a microphone into Elena's face. "Elena, is it true that Marcus begged you for marriage counseling for years before the affair?" Sarah claims he was lonely, that the marriage was a business arrangement long before she came along. The room seemed to lean in. The nearby guests stopped pretending to talk. They wanted blood. Elena felt the trap snapping shut. If she denied it, she looked defensive. If she stayed silent, she looked guilty. "My marriage," Elena said, her voice trembling slightly, "was not a business arrangement. It was a life, and it was destroyed by lies." "Lies?" Sarah laughed softly. "Or just truths you didn't want to hear." "Marcus told me everything, Elena. He told me how cold it was in that big house. He cried in my arms about it." The humiliation was a hot wave, scorching Elena's face. She looked around. No one was stepping in. No one was defending her. They were enjoying the show. Elena opened her mouth to speak, to scream, to flee. She wasn't sure which. But suddenly, a screech of feedback cut through the air. Wine crack. Everyone flinched. On the stage, Marcus was standing at the podium. He had grabbed the microphone from the MC. He wasn't looking at the audience. He was looking directly at Sarah and the reporter. "Turn that light off," Marcus commanded. His voice wasn't the smooth baritone of the CEO. It was rough, shaking. The cameraman hesitated, then lowered the light. The room was deathly silent. "Marcus, don't," his PR manager hissed from the side of the stage. "Stick to the script." Marcus ignored him. He looked out at the sea of faces. He looked at Elena, standing alone in her blue velvet armor, surrounded by wolves. "I have something to say," Marcus said into the mic. He took a deep breath. His hand gripped the podium so hard his knuckles were white. "For the last 6 months," Marcus began, "there has been a lot of noise. A lot of stories. Stories about a lonely billionaire. Stories about a cold wife. Stories about a muse." He looked at Sarah. "That story is a lie," he said. A gasp went through the room. "I wasn't lonely," Marcus said, his voice gaining strength. "I was cowardly." He stepped out from behind the podium, taking the mic with him, exposing himself to the room without the barrier of wood. "Elena didn't starve me of affection. She fed me. For 12 years, she was the only reason I could stand up in the morning. She built this foundation. She built me." He walked to the edge of the stage. He looked directly at Elena. "I cheated," he said. The words were stark, ugly. "Not because I was unhappy, but because I was weak. I cheated because I wanted to feel worshipped instead of known. Because Elena knew me. She knew my flaws, my fears, and that scared me. So I found someone who would just applaud." He turned to the reporter. "You asked about the crying," Marcus said. "You wrote that I cried because I was trapped in a loveless marriage." He shook his head. Tears were shining in his eyes now, under the hot stage lights. He didn't wipe them away. "I was crying," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "because I was on the phone with my mistress, and I realized that I had thrown away the best thing that ever happened to me for a cheap dopamine hit. I was crying because I knew I was about to lose the only woman who ever loved me for who I was, not what I had." He looked back at Elena. "She isn't the ice queen," Marcus whispered into the mic. "She's the fire. And I was the fool who doused it." He dropped the mic to his side. "I resign as chairman of the foundation," he said to the room. "This is Elena's night. It has always been Elena's night. I'm just the guest who overstayed his welcome." He placed the microphone gently on the stage floor. Then, he walked down the stairs. He didn't walk toward Elena. He didn't try to claim her. He walked toward the exit doors at the back of the room. The silence was absolute. Sarah stood frozen, her mouth slightly open. The narrative she had spun, the tragic hero and the cold wife, had just been incinerated by the hero himself. The reporter lowered his camera. The guests looked at Elena with new eyes. Not with pity, but with awe. Elena watched Marcus walking away. He looked smaller than he used to. He wasn't the titan of industry. He was just a man in a loose tuxedo who had finally told the truth. Her heart hammered. For 6 months, she had wanted him to hurt. She had wanted him to pay. But seeing him peel the skin off his own reputation to cover hers, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a bridge. He reached the double doors. He pushed them open. "Marcus," Elena said. It wasn't a shout. It was a quiet word, but in the silent room, it carried. He stopped. He didn't turn around. His shoulders were hunched, waiting for the final blow. Elena didn't move toward him. She stayed where she was, reclaiming her space in the center of the room. "Thank you," she said. It was simple. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't come home, but it was an acknowledgement. He had finally done the one thing his money couldn't do. He had stood in the fire for her. Marcus nodded once. Then he walked out into the night. The doors swung shut. For a second, no one moved. Then, the chairman of the board started to clap. Slowly. Then someone else. Then the room erupted. They weren't clapping for Marcus. They were clapping for Elena. Sarah turned and slipped away into the crowd, disappearing like smoke. Elena took a breath. She smoothed her velvet dress. She turned to the reporter, who looked terrified. "Now," Elena said, her voice steady and regal. "If you're done asking about my husband, I'd like to talk about the art program for underprivileged youth. That is, after all, why we are here." Later that night, outside the hotel, the rain had returned. Elena stood under the awning waiting for her car. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her exhausted but light. A figure was standing by the valet stand, looking out at the rain, shivering slightly without a coat. It was Marcus. He hadn't left. He was waiting for his own car, which seemed to be delayed. He saw her. He stepped back, giving her 10 feet of space. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "I didn't mean to intrude. My driver is stuck in traffic." "You didn't intrude," Elena said. She looked at him. He looked soaked, miserable, and incredibly human. "Are you okay?" she asked. Marcus let out a short, humorless laugh. "No. I think I just tanked my stock price and became the laughingstock of Seattle. But I feel better than I have in a year." He looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "Did I fix it?" he asked. "The leak?" Elena looked at the rain falling between them. The glass wall he had built was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that was left was the wreckage. "You swept up some of the glass, Marcus," she said softly. "I'm in therapy," he blurted out. "Dr. Eris. 3 times a week. We talk about my father. We talk about the need for validation. It's hell. But I'm doing it." Elena nodded. "Good. I know I can't come home," Marcus said. "I know that. But can I call you? Not to beg. Just to tell you about therapy? To be real." The valet pulled up with Elena's town car. The driver opened the door. Elena hesitated. She looked at the empty back seat. Then she looked at Marcus. She remembered the man in the bathroom, crying because he couldn't lie anymore. Tonight, he hadn't lied. Tonight, he had told the hardest truth of his life. "Not yet," Elena said. Marcus's shoulders slumped. "Okay, I understand. Call me in a month," she said. She got into the car. "If you're still in therapy," she added through the open window. "And if you're still real." Marcus stood up straighter. A flicker of hope, fragile, terrifying hope, lit up his eyes. "I will be," he promised. "I'm not going anywhere. Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Elle." The car pulled away. Elena leaned back against the leather seat. She closed her eyes. She wasn't ready to forgive him. Not fully. But the ice in her chest had cracked. And through the crack, for the first time in 6 months, she could feel the warmth of a new beginning. Not the fairy tale, but something better. Something true. Marcus just sacrificed his reputation to save Elena's. That speech gave me chills. Do you think one public act of bravery makes up for the betrayal? Or does he still have a long way to go? And would you have told him to call in a month? Let me know in the comments. The month passed not in a blur, but in a slow, deliberate crawl. Elena returned to the lake house. She painted. She hosted a board meeting for the foundation via Zoom, where she received a standing ovation that made her uncomfortable. She accepted it with grace, then turned off the camera and went for a long walk in the woods. She didn't check Marcus's social media. She didn't ask Samantha, her publicist, for updates. She waited. On the 31st day, at 9 a.m. sharp, her phone rang. She was in the kitchen, making toast. The smell of burnt sourdough filled the air. She stared at the screen. Marcus. Her heart did a traitorous little flip. She took a deep breath, wiped crumbs from her hands, and answered. Hello. Hi, Marcus said. His voice was clear, calm. It's been 30 days. I know, Elena said. I'm still in therapy, he said immediately, as if presenting his passport at a border crossing. Dr. Aris says I'm making progress. We're working on decoupling self-worth from external validation. It turns out, I'm a classic case. Elena smiled, despite herself. That sounds expensive. Cheaper than a divorce. Marcus joked, then hesitated. Too soon. A little, Elena said. But I appreciate the effort. I was wondering, Marcus said, his voice dropping a register, becoming serious. If you still drink coffee? With non-strangers? Elena looked out at the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the gray sky. I do, she said. There's a place in Capitol Hill. Oddfellows. It's noisy. It's cheap. No one wears a suit there. Tuesday at 10. Elena thought about the old Marcus. He would have suggested the private dining room at the Rainier Club. He would have sent a car. Tuesday at 10, she said. I'll drive myself. The first date. Elena arrived 5 minutes early. She wore jeans and a cashmere sweater. She sat in a booth in the back, watching the door. Marcus walked in at 10 o'clock on the dot. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing dark denim and a gray Henley shirt. He looked younger, or maybe just less armored. He looked around, spotted her, and a genuine smile broke across his face. It wasn't the practiced CEO smile. It was the smile of a man seeing a lifeline. He walked over. He didn't try to hug her. He didn't try to kiss her cheek. He stood by the table. Is this seat taken? He asked. Depends, Elena said. Are you planning to check your phone every 3 minutes? Marcus pulled his phone out of his pocket. He held it up. Then, he turned it off and placed it face down on the far edge of the table. I don't have a phone, he said. Then have a seat. They ordered coffee. For the first 20 minutes, it was excruciating. They talked about the weather. They talked about the Seahawks. They talked like two people on a blind date who shared a complicated history, but no shared language. Then, Marcus put his spoon down. I saw Sarah, he said. Elena stiffened. The air in the cafe seemed to thin. Oh, she called me, Marcus said. After the gala. She was angry. She said I humiliated her. She threatened to release more texts. To write a book. Elena gripped her mug. And what did you do? I told her to go ahead, Marcus said. Elena looked at him, surprised. You did. I told her that she couldn't hurt me anymore, Marcus said, looking Elena in the eye. Because I had already told the truth. The blackmail only works if you have something to hide. I have nothing left to hide, Elle. I'm an open book. A messy, redacted book, maybe, but open. And the book deal? She dropped it. Marcus shrugged. Turns out, a redemption arc is less interesting to publishers without a villain to fight. When I stopped fighting her, she lost interest. Elena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. I'm proud of you, she said. The words seemed to hit Marcus like a physical blow. His eyes welled up. He looked away, blinking rapidly. Don't, he whispered. I don't deserve that yet. You told the truth, Elena said. That's a start. They sat there for 2 hours. They talked about his therapy. They talked about her painting. They didn't talk about the company. They didn't talk about the money. When they walked out onto the street, it was raining again. Can I do this again? Marcus asked, standing in the drizzle, hands in his pockets. Next week, Elena opened her umbrella. She looked at him. He was soaking wet, and he didn't seem to care. Next week, she agreed. But bring an umbrella. You're not invincible, Marcus. I know. He smiled, a crooked, self-deprecating thing. I'm learning that. 3 months later. The reconciliation wasn't a montage of romantic dinners and sunset walks. It was work. It was awkward marriage counseling sessions where they argued about resentment. It was nights where Elena would suddenly remember the image of him in the bathroom and go cold, retreating into herself for days. It was Marcus learning to sit in that coldness without trying to fix it or buy his way out of it. He moved into a small apartment in the city. He put the mansion on the market. It's too big, he told Elena one afternoon while they were hiking. It has too many echoes. I want something human. He stepped down as CEO of Sterling & Co., transitioning to a chairman role. He handed the daily operations to his VP. "I missed 12 years of weekends," he said. "I'm not missing any more." Elena watched him change. It wasn't a flash in the pan. It was a slow, grinding reconstruction of his character. He was like a house that had been stripped down to the studs. It looked ugly for a while, exposed and raw, but the rot was gone. One evening in May, Elena invited him to the lake house. It was the first time he had been there since he tried to send the construction crew. He arrived with a bag of groceries, not a contractor. He made dinner, spaghetti, messy and oversauced, just the way they used to eat it in college. They ate on the porch, watching the sun set over the water. "I brought you something," Marcus said, clearing the plates. Elena tensed. "Marcus," we agreed. "No gifts." "It's not a gift," he said. "It's a repair." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small, wooden box. Elena opened it. Inside was a ceramic bowl. It was beautiful, made of rough, dark clay. But running through the center of it was a vein of bright, shimmering gold. "Do you know what this is?" Marcus asked. "Kintsugi," Elena whispered. "The Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. They believe that when something suffered damage and has been a history, it becomes more beautiful," Marcus said softly. "The cracks aren't hidden. They're highlighted." He reached out and touched her hand across the table. "I broke us, Elle. I shattered us. And I can never unbreak us. We will never be the couple we were before the bathroom. We will never be the perfect Sterlings." He looked at the bowl. "But maybe we can be this. Maybe the gold is the truth. Maybe we're stronger at the broken places." Elena ran her finger over the gold seam. It was smooth, but she could feel the ridge where the pieces joined. It wasn't seamless. It was real. She looked at Marcus. She saw the gray in his hair. She saw the lines of worry etched into his forehead. He wasn't the shiny billionaire anymore. He was a man who had made a terrible mistake and spent every day since trying to atone for it. She realized she didn't miss the old Marcus. She liked this one better. "It's beautiful," she said. "Elena," Marcus said, sliding off his chair onto one knee. It wasn't like the first time he proposed, on a yacht in Capri with a diamond the size of a walnut. The floorboards of the porch were rough. He wasn't holding a ring. He was holding her hand. "I'm not asking you to marry me," he said. "We're already married. I'm asking you to stay. I'm asking you to let me spend the rest of my life filling the cracks with gold. I'm asking for a second chance to be the husband you deserved the first time." Elena looked at him. She thought about the pain, the humiliation, the long nights alone chopping wood. But she also thought about the courage it took to stand on that stage, the humility of the small apartment, the way he looked at her now, not as a possession, but as a miracle he was terrified of losing. She squeezed his hand. "Get up, Marcus," she said softly. He looked terrified. He started to stand. "My knees are getting old," she laughed, a wet, teary sound. "And so are yours." She stood up and pulled him into her arms. It was the first time they had hugged in 8 months. He smelled of rain and cedar and spaghetti sauce. He didn't smell like secrets anymore. He buried his face in her neck, and she felt his shoulders shake. He was crying again, but this time, it wasn't the sound of a man drowning in lies. It was the sound of a man coming home. "Yes," Elena whispered into his ear. "I'll stay. Let's build something new." 1 year later. The headline in the Seattle Insider was small, buried on page 6. "Former billionaire and wife spotted at farmer's market." There was a photo. It showed Marcus and Elena Sterling. They weren't wearing gala attire. They were wearing raincoats. Marcus was carrying a tote bag full of kale. Elena was laughing at something he said, her head thrown back, her hand resting easily on his arm. They looked ordinary. They looked happy. Elena cut the clipping out. She didn't frame it. She stuck it on the fridge at the lake house with a magnet. That evening, they sat by the fire. The kintsugi bowl sat on the mantel, catching the light of the flames. Marcus was reading a book. Elena was sketching. "Hey," Marcus said, looking up. "I was thinking." "Dangerous." Elena smiled, not looking up from her page. "I was thinking about renewing our vows. Maybe next year. Something small. Just us and the trees." Elena put her pencil down. She looked at her husband, the man who had broken her heart, and then, piece by piece, helped her glue it back together with gold. "I'd like that," she said. "I have a new vow," Marcus said. "I wrote it down. Let's hear it." Marcus cleared his throat. "I promise to never lie to you," he said. "Even when the truth is ugly. Even when it scares me. Especially when it scares me." Elena walked over to him. She sat on the arm of his chair and kissed him. "And I promise," she whispered, "to never let you forget that you are enough. Just you. No billions required." Outside, the wind howled through the Douglas firs, shaking the branches. But inside the A-frame, the fire was warm, the foundation was solid, and the cracks, well, the cracks were what made it beautiful. What a journey. From the bathroom floor to the quiet peace of the lake house. It wasn't easy, but they did the work. Do you think true forgiveness is possible after betrayal? Could you have forgiven Marcus? Let me know your story in the comments below. And if you believe in second chances, hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional stories every week. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.